3 Sinister True Roommate Tales, Haunted Secrets Exposed That Will Leave You Spine Challng. Jenna took a deep breath, embracing the newness that surrounded her. The apartment in the quaint suburb outside Philadelphia felt like it promised freedom, a chance to break away from her tight-knit family back in Pennsylvania. She smiled as she unpacked her boxes, her mind buzzing with the excitement of college life. Little did she know, her anticipation would soon twist into something horrifying. Weeks flew by in a whirl of pizza nights and study sessions with her roommates, Claire and Annie, who seemed perfect in every way at first. But after the initial glow faded, a heavy unease settled in Jenna's chest. The walls of their apartment, once cozy and inviting, now felt suffocating. That is when she first noticed the whispers. At night, as she lay nestled in her blankets, faint murmurs wormed their way through the thin walls. She brushed it off, assuming it was just part of the soundscape of a shared home, until it escalated. Shadows danced in her dreams, accompanied by a creeping chant that made her skin crawl. When Jenna finally summoned the courage to ask Claire and Annie about the whispers, they just smiled, their bright eyes gleaming, dismissing her worries with a laugh that didn't reach them. Something about their calm made her gut twist. Her unease morphed into curiosity, leading her to investigate the neighborhood folklore, the stories swirling among students about a woman who vanished from their very apartment years ago, the haunting truth behind the whispers. "What is the call of the lost?" she asked a friend, her voice tinged with anxiety. The murmurs of warning sent a chill down her spine. She felt as if shadows were tracing her steps, that perhaps her vibrant roommates were more than just quirky college girls. They were in on something darker, something alive. Desperate for answers, Jenna reached out to her landlord. "You young ladies need to be careful what you believe," he replied, a gleam in his eye that sent a shiver through her. The police shrugged her off, muttering something about paranoia, leaving her feeling isolated, trapped in her own reality. Determined to break the cycle of fear, Jenna prepared to confront Claire and Annie as they prepped an unusually elaborate get-together in the living room. Her heart raced as she stumbled upon a hidden antique box beneath a loose floorboard in her room. She pried it open, revealing relics and cryptic notes intertwined with chilling sketches of rituals, all linked to the very legend that haunted her mind. Before she could piece together her next move, she noticed the living room door was ajar, faint whispers weaving their way from within, wrapping around her like ghostly fingers. Candlelight flickered, dancing ominously. Jenna's pulse quickened. She caught a glimpse of Claire and Annie, their faces twisted in concentration, chanting in unison. The words wrapped around Jenna like a constricting vine, biting deep into her sanity. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." As dread pooled in her stomach, Jenna's throat tightened. She could feel the weight of the darkness that enveloped her. Those whispers, were they summoning her to join in, sealing her fate? Her every instinct screamed to run, yet curiosity held her, rooting her to the floor. What secrets lay just beyond the door? Before she could catch her breath, the whispers grew louder, insistent and hungry, urging her closer, inviting her to become part of their sinister web. Could she escape? Or was she already too entangled in the shadows that held her roommates, and her own destiny, captive? Her heart pounded in her ears, a frantic drum that echoed the growing whispers spilling into the hallway. Each syllable felt like a cold breath against the back of her neck. Jenna's legs felt like lead, heavy and unwilling to move. The candlelight flickered again, casting elongated shadows across the walls that seemed to stretch toward her, reaching, beckoning. Staring into the dim room, she could make out Claire and Annie, their forms outlined by the eerie glow. They stood with their backs to her, each hair on their head swaying softly as if pulled by an invisible force. The words poured from their mouths like a dark stream, rhythmic and hypnotic. They swayed slightly, absorbed in whatever dark ritual they were enacting. Jenna, the name slipped through the air, too soft and yet somehow thunderous. It wasn't either of her roommates calling it, it felt deeper, primal, resonating from the walls themselves. She shivered violently, the urge to flee pushing against the compulsion to understand. "Get a grip, Jenna," she muttered to herself, forcing her feet to shift. Each step felt like walking through molasses, the air thick with fear. She had to know what they were doing. Maybe they were just messing around, a weird midnight sorority ritual, she thought, desperately trying to convince herself. Yet, the way they chanted made it sound like more a summons, like they were invoking something far worse than a harmless prank. "Leave now, before it's too late," the voice resonated again, swirling through her mind. It wasn't her own thought, it echoed with a certainty that seized her heart. Jenna shifted back, grappling with a choice she never wished to face. She turned toward escape, heart racing, but the whispers took on a sharper tone, cutting through her indecision with serrated demands. Join us," the door creaked as if responding to their command, becoming an invitation cloaked in dread. A sudden surge of air pushed against her, filling her lungs with an unnatural chill. Panic surged, and she jolted forward, yet she found herself drawn to the door, an invisible thread tugging her into the room. In that moment, she caught a glimpse of her own reflection in the mirror hung on the wall. Dark shadows flickered across her face, her eyes wide with fear, but there was something else. Faint flickers of her roommate's mirth danced in the depths of her gaze. Jenna's blood turned cold. No, she breathed, backing away. The faces of Claire and Annie twisted in her mind, blending into a monstrous image as if they were losing their humanity within the ritual's grasp. What had they willingly embraced? But a desperate longing clawed at her, creating a void she couldn't ignore. The need to belong wrestled against her instincts, urging her forward. Each whisper was a siren song pulling her deeper into their world. She steadied herself, gripping the box she had found earlier. Their laughter echoed, but now it felt different, malicious, expectant. They turned slightly, their eyes now like hollow pits, gleaming with something sinister, something more than friendship, a connection that bound them to a darkness she couldn't yet grasp. "Jenna, we've been waiting for you." Those words turned the air sharp and brittle. She stumbled backward, heart racing faster than her mind could catch up. The urge to break free became a desperate fight against an unseen force. Was she destined to join them? To sink into this eerie conspiracy of shadows? Just as she began to retreat, Claire and Annie stepped forward in unison, their movements fluid like a dark ballet, encroaching upon her space, each step synchronizing with the chaos inside her heart. "Join us," they hissed, the room swelling with tension, shadows closing in, saturating her reality, wrapping her in a chilling embrace. The whispers escalated to a cacophony, a wild storm of voices pushing against her sanity. Jenna froze, torn between the allure of joining and the resolve to escape. Then the candles flickered out in one blinding flash, plunging the room into darkness, leaving her alone with her racing thoughts. Was this the moment she would lose herself forever? Or was it still capable of breaking free from their grasp? With a breath caught in her throat, Jenna's heart pounded louder, drowning out the whispers, but just beyond the silence, something stirred. The darkness swallowed Jenna whole. She squeezed her eyes shut, desperate to shut out the echoing whispers, the pinprick of panic that ignited her senses. Heart racing, she turned, retracing her steps to the door, but the oppressive air pressed against her like a weighted quilt. The familiar creak of the wooden planks beneath her feet transformed into haunting wails, as if the house itself mourned. A breeze, cold and unnatural, kissed her cheek, and Jenna's eyes flew open. Shapes shifted around her, fluid shadows that danced in maddening patterns. She could sense them, closer, their forms vibrating with a rhythm that radiated off the walls. Claire and Annie were no longer just her roommates, they were part of this darkness. Jenna, the whispers emerged again, more tantalizing, wrapping around her like a dark veil. "Join us," panic surged through her veins. She couldn't succumb. She glanced back at the empty spaces where her friends had stood, but even the faint flicker of their candlelight seemed to vanish, extinguished by the looming presence of something, or someone, beyond, she turned and sprinted towards the exit, each pounding step echoing in the silence. The door, her key to safety, loomed ahead. But it refused to budge. "Let me out!" she screamed, a primal cry filled with terror. A low chuckle rippled through the air. An icy wind swept past, mocking her struggle. "Join us," the voice transformed, deepening, twisting into something unrecognizable. It peered into her soul, igniting memories of laughter now tinged with dread. She could hear Claire and Annie, their voices sweet yet sinister, coaxing her to come back. "Stay with us forever," the term forever twisted in her mind, a promise laced with horror, chaining her to this moment. Shaking her head, she clawed at the door, willing it to give. The handle twisted in her grasp, causing her to stumble backward. "No. Stop." The desperation in her tone felt foreign, as if she were fighting against something otherworldly. Behind her, shadows stretched, reaching, almost human yet grotesque in their forms, yet, amidst her fright, something an ember of hope pushed her to act. Jenna turned and hurled herself toward the scattered candles lining the floor. They glowed dimly, their flickering flames a pulse of light begging to be ignited. With the force of survival, she swept her arm across the table, sending the candles crashing to the ground. A burst of illuminating fire sprang to life around her, painting the shadows in sudden brilliance. For an instant, everything felt alive. The figures that had haunted her began to flicker, their malevolence receding. But then the flames shrank, the fire dimming as if answering a haunting call. The laughter returned, filling the air with dark delight, and in that moment, she knew, the shadows were coming back, feeding off her fear. They were drawn to the flickers of her defiance. Jenna, the voice, multi-toned, grew louder. It echoed the rhythm of her pounding heart, only it spoke of despair. She pressed her palms to her ears, fighting to drown it out, then she felt it, a heat against her back, warmth spreading. Maybe the flames weren't fading, they were consuming. She opened her eyes to see the candles flickering wildly, as if responding to an unseen force. The shadows retreated, but only for a heartbeat. And that's when she realized that the darkness didn't fear the light. It thrived in it, driving her deeper into a madness she could sense on the periphery. "Jenna, please don't leave us," Claire's voice broke through the dark veil, cutting right to her core. But the predator behind her lurked, a monstrous figure searching for any sign of weakness. In desperation, Jenna hurled herself towards the mirror that had once reflected her fears. This time, it offered no glimpse of herself, only the dark depths of a hell she couldn't comprehend. With one last push, she slammed her palm against the glass, willing to break the threshold, wishing to alter fate itself. But instead of shattering glass, she felt resistance. The mirror froze under her touch, pulsating. Jenna gasped. This wasn't merely a reflection, it was a doorway. "Jump!" a voice screamed. Heart pounding, she leaped, unaware of what waited on the other side. What she found shocked her to the core. And then, in a blinding flash, everything went dark again. Jenna hit the ground, hard, a jarring thud that reverberated through her bones. She gasped for breath, confusion swirling like smoke in her head. The panic surged, clawing at her throat as she lifted her eyes. She was no longer in the house. It was a room cloaked in shadows, but somehow, they felt different here, more coiled, more alive. The walls pulsed with a faint, sinister light, casting grotesque silhouettes that writhed and contorted. She scrambled to her feet, taking in her surroundings. An old leather armchair sat in the corner, threads exposed, and the air smelled of dampness and decay, like something long forgotten. Jenna, that voice, the familiar sing-song call wrapped around her like a thick fog. Not Claire or Annie, but something far more sinister. Shadows flickered along the edges, hinting at hidden figures just out of sight. "You shouldn't have come here." The chill gripped her heart. Adrenaline surged, urging her to find an exit, but her feet wouldn't move. They felt anchored, as if the very ground was pulling her down. Then, almost imperceptibly, the shadows tore themselves away from the corners, revealing dark visages twisted in agony, faces she recognized yet couldn't comprehend. No, no. She screamed, finally finding her legs. She darted to the door, her hands clawing at the knob. Locked. The voice from moments before echoed in her mind, taunting and cruel. You belong to us now. Her pulse raced. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. Jenna spun, desperate to understand what was happening. Then she saw it, a mirror against the opposite wall, gleaming with a sickly light. It resonated with the same pulse she'd felt before, an invitation wrapped in dread. Don't look. Another voice ricocheted, a whisper that tasted like loss. It was Claire's voice, but distorted, like a filter through a corrupted channel. Yet Jenna was entranced. Whatever lay inside beckoned to her. She approached the reflection, unblinking. It flickered, distorted flashes of the house that had once felt like home. Before she could think, she reached out to touch the surface. The instant her fingers brushed the glass, darkness erupted around her like a wave crashing against the shore. She was pulled in, and the world dissolved. Now she stood in a vast darkness that resonated with whispers of countless souls lost, tormented. Shadows pressed against her, a cacophony of despair pulsing with her heart. Jenna stumbled back, dread spilling through her veins. Join us, they begged, voices rising in a chilling harmony. No. She shouted, a surge of defiance coursing through her. I want to be like you. She turned and ran, through the void, shapes twisted, elongating like gnarled branches reaching for prey. They surrounded her, a carbon copy of the grief she felt, faces she knew yet didn't, their expressions merging into a terrifying mask of torment. Stay with us. They cried, laughter mingling with wails. Each syllable felt like ice lashing against her skin. She stumbled, despair clawing at the edges of her mind, threatening to take her down. Jenna blinked back tears. Dread seeped into her bones, heavy. In the distance, a glimmer surfaced, a flickering light. Her instincts kicked in. She pushed through the shadows, determination carving a path through the murk. I'm not afraid. She screamed. The shadows faltered, pulling back momentarily. But their laughter grew louder, swirling around her, igniting shadows into grotesque forms that danced menacingly. Suddenly, she spotted the door, a bright, glowing exit behind a veil of darkness. The light pulsed with a promise of freedom. She lunged towards it, her heart racing wildly, the echoes of anguish clawing at her heels. Don't leave us. We need you. The voices morphed into a singular scream, resonating deep within her like a curse. Just as her hand grasped the doorknob, the cold weight of doubt crushed her resolve. What would happen if she opened it? Would she be stepping into salvation, or worse? Without another thought, she twisted the knob. The door swung open wide, revealing the bright light bursting through like morning glory. But what awaited her beyond the threshold could change everything. Could she really escape? Or was this just the beginning of something even more horrific? Jenna stepped through the door, heart hammering against her ribs. The light engulfed her, brighter than any day she'd ever known. For a fleeting moment, she felt weightless, free. But that bliss was swiftly consumed by shadows that seeped through the cracks in her mind, clawing their way back to her consciousness. She landed on the floor again, but this time it was hardwood, polished to a high sheen. The room was eerily familiar, her own living room back at the house. A faint scent of lavender wafted through the air, an echo of Claire's favorite candles. Relief washed over her, but only for a heartbeat. Jenna. A voice pierced through the quiet. It was Claire, her face pale, eyes wide with panic. You were gone. We thought. Claire. Jenna shouted, but fear clutched at her throat. I was just. She looked around, the warm light of her home feeling like a lie. The shadows in the corners seemed to shift, watching. Where did you go? We couldn't find you. Claire stepped closer, but Jenna backed away instinctively. There was something off. Claire's reflection in a nearby window looked distorted, features flickering like a light bulb on the verge of burnout. They're not gone, they're here, Jenna whispered. Desperation clawed at her mind, almost drowning her. I can feel them. Suddenly, the room darkened, even as the sunshine streamed through the window. Shadows snaked around the furniture, whispering, beckoning. Jenna's pulse sped up as her stomach lurched. Run! We need to go! Claire yelled, her voice shaking, but Jenna was frozen in place. No! I can't leave. They want me. Jenna felt an unyielding pull, a bond connecting her to the unseen. Claire reached for her, desperation etched in her features. Please, Jenna. Fight it. We have to get out of here. Jenna felt herself wavering, torn between the comfort of familiarity and the encroaching darkness whispering her name. The shadows coiled tighter, their whispers turning into snarls, a dissonant choir filling the air with dread. Jenna, you are one of us. The words slithered through her mind, sending icy tendrils deep into her psyche. Her heart raced as dark shapes pivoted, morphing into figures she recognized, faces from the depths of her worst nightmares, come to life. No. Stop it. You're not real. Jenna screamed, clenching her fists in a futile effort to drown out their tormenting laughter. Why fight? A voice sang sweetly. It was Claire's voice, but also something more insidious. You belong here. You've always belonged with us. No. Jenna cried, turning back to her friend. I want to let them take you, too. Claire reached out, trembling. Stay with me, Jenna. Don't listen. You have to fight. The light flickered violently as Jenna felt the grip of the shadows tightening around her, threatening to consume her entirely. She could see Claire's form wavering, as though her friend was fading, trapped between worlds. Jenna. Remember the happy times. Remember us. Claire's voice broke, echoing right through Jenna, fueling her determination. The connection felt like a lifeline, but each second spent near the dark figures threatened to sever it forever. Jenna shut her eyes, focusing on the treasured memories with Claire, the laughter, the late-night talks, the silly dance-offs in the living room. That warmth coiled around her heart, undeterred by the darkness, but then came a chilling thought. What if this isn't real? What if I'm dreaming again? With a newfound resolve, she shouted, I choose life. I choose her. The shadows snapped at her, hungry and desperate, howling in anguish as she surged toward the light. But the moment her fingers brushed against the doorknob again, she felt a violent tug at her soul. Jenna! Claire screamed, terrified, her figure flickering out of reality. No! Don't leave me! And just like that, the light split into two. One path promised freedom. The other led back into the pit of shadows, pulling at her heels with greedy hands. What would she choose? In that moment of hesitation, the walls around her began to crumble. She had to decide, or risk losing it all. Would she break free, or be bound forever in the darkness? The door shook, a soul's fate hanging in the balance. Would she choose light, or succumb to the growing shadows? The answer loomed just out of reach. Jenna's fingers hovered over the doorknob, every muscle in her body tense, trembling. A part of her yearned for the light, the sweet, beckoning warmth that promised safety. But another part, darker, whispered seductive lies, painting vivid pictures of power and belonging. The shadows writhed impatiently, hissing, clamoring, their presence growing more suffocating by the second. She could feel their icy whispers curling around her throat, squeezing tighter, leaving her breathless. Jenna, you need to decide. Claire's voice cut through the chaos, frantic and pained. The flickering figure of her friend twisted and morphed, her face contorted with fear. Don't let them take you. Come back. You're stronger than this. In that moment, Jenna felt a jolt, something akin to clarity. Flashbacks flooded her mind, spontaneous road trips, snowball fights, whispered secrets late into the night. She could feel the joy radiating, an emotional lighthouse in the storm of fear. I'm not letting you go. She screamed, as if the sheer force of her will might pull Claire back from the brink, but the shadows weren't done. They charged forward, a rush of darkness that swallowed the room whole. Jenna staggered, aware of the chilling breath of their insatiable hunger, the clawing urge to drag her into the abyss. Join us. You cannot resist what is your nature. Jenna felt herself slipping, fingers slipping from the knob as doubt seeped into her thoughts, infecting her heart. What if Claire wasn't real? What if this was just another twisted dream, another false reality where pain lurked beneath layers of shallow affection? The light was fading. Claire's image trembled like a mirage, a memory that might evaporate any second. Jenna, please. You're stronger. You feel it too, don't you? Claire pressed, her voice shaking, yet laced with an iron determination that sliced through Jenna's confusion. Fight. Fight for us. Gritting her teeth, Jenna shut her eyes tight, drawing upon every ounce of strength. They were in there, clawing at the back of her mind, trying to drown her in despair. With every pull of the shadows, she fought back. I am not yours. She shrieked, pushing the words out with a ferocity she didn't know she could summon. The air thickened around her as the shadows shrieked in fury, dark tendrils snapping at her skin like whips. She pressed against the cool surface of the door, feeling the thrum of energy behind it, the promise of safety coiling around her legs, urging her to advance. The darkness was a torrent, dragging her away from the light she craved. Focus, Jenna. Claire's voice, filled with that familiar warmth, anchored her. Think of the love. The laughter. Fight for your life. All at once, Jenna felt the shadow's grip slacken, the hold unwinding like a fraying rope. She pushed through the darkness, forcing her feet to move. I choose you. She yelled, her heart pounding in sync with her racing thoughts. With a primal scream, she flung the door open, spilling light and air into the suffocating dark. But as she stepped through, her heart sank. The other side was not the garden of light she had hoped for, it was a twisted version of her own room, a mirror reflecting her worst nightmares. The shadows followed, shrieking, and in a last-ditch effort, they lunged toward her, grasping fingers aimed at her heart. You will never escape. The voices cried, reverberating like thunder in her mind. Jenna stumbled again, breath hitching as she fought to regain her footing. Claire's cry was muted, a ghost of what once was, but still, Jenna clung to the fading hope. She refused to let them win. Jenna. A low voice echoed from the shadows, a voice that felt all too familiar. It was a sinister tone, laced with mockery. You think you're free? You think you can outrun us? Against the backdrop of twisted furniture and unreal shapes that lurked within the darkness, a figure emerged. The light flickered, revealing the form of someone she once loved, but it was wrong, so wrong. Hollow eyes boring into hers, mouth curling with a malicious grin. Welcome home, it said, voice. Dripping with sickening sweetness. Jenna's heart sank deeper into her stomach, the shadows surged forward once more, leaving her breathless at the terror of her breaking reality. Could she fight them off? Or was this a cruel game, one she could never win? The door behind her slammed shut with an otherworldly boom, sealing her fate. And just like that, her chance at freedom slipped away. Now, trapped and confused, Jenna strained to understand the darkness that enveloped her. Did her choice seal her doom, or was there yet another way out? The shadows whispered, and with a surge of icy dread, despair edged ever closer. What would she uncover in this new torment? Jenna's heart raced as she stared into the eyes of the familiar figure standing before her. It was her brother, Ethan, but there was nothing comforting about the way he smiled. His once warm gaze was now a void, a stark contrast to the memories of family gatherings and shared laughter. The shadows coiled around him, a living cloak feeding off the darkness within. Come play, he coaxed, his voice an echo of mocking tenderness. We have so much to catch up on. No. This is wrong. Jenna shook her head, backing away as the shadows flickered like flames hungry for fuel. Each step felt heavy, as if the very air was trying to pull her back into its clutches. Ethan, please, you're not him. But the twisted version of her brother laughed, a sound that echoed through her mind like a cracked bell. Oh, but I am. You never did want to believe the truth, did you? Did you think you could escape? With every word, the shadows screeched, pushing at the edges of her sanity, whispering her deepest fears and regrets. Invisible hands tugged at her, urging her to give in, to trust the dark, to surrender to the comforting lies that promised power over her deepest insecurities. Jenna gritted her teeth, feeling the weight of their torment. I am stronger than this, she screamed, forcing the words out, but they felt as fragile as gossamer before the storm. Ethan stepped forward, making the room seem smaller, closing in like a vice. Let go of your hope, Jenna. You felt it too, the allure of what I can offer. Happiness, acceptance. We could be one with the shadows. He extended a hand, and the shadows wrapped around it, caressing him like a warped lover. Desperation gnawed at her. Could she fight this? Could she resist what a part of her craved? She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply, remembering the strength of love, the brightness of laughter. We are more than this. Suddenly, a voice ripped through the dark, piercing like lightning striking the ground. Fight it, Jenna. Don't let them drown you. It was Claire again, her presence flickering like a candle flame in the storm of shadows. The room shifted, transforming again, walls pulsing, colors swirling in agonizing disarray. Ethan's malicious grin widened. She's dead, Jenna. Just a figment of your dwindling hope. Terror clawed at her heart. No. Jenna screamed, the sound reverberating, sending ripples through the fabric of darkness. When she opened her eyes, they met Ethan's cold stare, morphing into something grotesque, a shifting mass of despair. Desperate, she felt along the wall, searching for something, anything to anchor her. There had to be a way out. Suddenly, she noticed a doorway, a glimmer of silver light peeking through the machinations of shadows. Hope surged within her, a flame fighting against the smothering night. That's it. The light. She shouted, but with a shriek like a banshee. Ethan lunged at her, shadows melding into a monstrous form as if to swallow her whole. You can't escape your fate. As she sprinted toward the light, her feet barely touching the ground, the shadows erupted, clawing at her, tearing at the fabric of her very being. Jenna could feel her heart pounding, adrenaline surging, mundane fears drowning in the desperate splash of survival. One last push. Would the light save her? Just before she reached the doorway, she was yanked back, shadows wrapping around her, pulling her into a dark embrace. Jenna gasped as the coldness sunk into her skin, a chill that threatened to shatter her resolve. Join us, Ethan hissed, his voice now a chorus from 1,000 tormented souls. In that moment, with darkness closing painfully tight, a chilling thought struck her. What if this world was a mere reflection? What if the true horror awaited her on the other side of the door? Do it. Claire's voice begged, fractured and distant. Choose your fate. The shadows screamed a symphony of anguish as Jenna stood on the precipice of choice, caught between the light of escape and the darkness of her own mind. What choice would she make? Would she uncover the dark truth hiding just beyond the light? Or would she remain entwined in the night forever? Jenna's breath snagged in her throat as the shadows squeezed tighter, a suffocating grip that threatened to snuff out her very essence. Every heartbeat felt like it echoed in the silence, ringing like a warning bell. The light flickered just beyond reach, blinking as if mocking her desperation. Do you really want to know? Ethan's voice slithered around her as the shadows pulsed and writhed, drawing close. His form wavered, a grotesque marionette dancing on the strings of darkness. What lies on the other side? It's far worse than this. Shut up. Jenna screamed, the volume of her voice surprising even herself. I want to listen to you. But doubt gnawed at her as visions swirled in her mind. What if she took that step into the light? Would it be blissful release, or an even deeper plunge into nightmare? Behind her, the dark form of Ethan, a twisted perversion of brotherly affection, grinned wider. Stay, you have no idea how glorious it is here, he taunted, shadows writhing at his feet like sentient serpents eager to pounce. We can stay forever together. Desperate and shaking, Jenna snapped her eyes shut, forcing herself to remember. Flashes of joy erupted in her mind like fireworks, warm family dinners, laughter shared around heavy wooden tables, the whispers of soft songs during bedtime. Each memory was a piece of armor against the grip of despair. Jenna Claire's voice flickered back again, stronger now, parting the darkness like a knife. Trust yourself. Trust the love. It's your bridge, cross it. With a guttural scream, Jenna flung herself toward the shimmering light. But then, without warning, the shadows lashed out, biting and clawing at her skin, icy fingers embedding despair deep into her heart. She felt the weight of their collective sorrow pulling her back, dragging her into their eternal night. No! She cried, voice trembling as she fought against the torment. The silver light shimmered farther away now, retreating like a fleeting dream. She could feel their whispers, sharp like glass, revealing fears long buried. You left him, you never loved him enough. He's gone because of you. A wave of nausea overcame her, the guilt riding high within. No. Jenna's own words betrayed her. I did love Ethan. Yet here he stands, the shadows laughed, a cacophony of derision. And he wants you to join him. Is it so hard to give in? Defiance surged within her again. I will not succumb. I will find out the truth. In a sudden burst of strength, she released a cry that came not just from her throat but erupted from her core, a sound of blazing defiance. The shadows shuddered, recoiling as if stung, easing their grip ever so slightly. Ahead, the light surged, illuminating the darkness around it. Jenna seized that moment. I choose hope. She declared, tears spilling down her cheeks as she hurled herself toward the doorway again, each step fueled by every ounce of love she ever felt. The shadows snarled, clawing at her clothes, grasping at her ankles, but she pressed on, forcing her way through the haze. When she reached the threshold, a blinding brightness enveloped her. For an agonizing heartbeat, silence fell, almost like holding her breath under water. But then sudden pain jolted through her, an electric shock that snapped her back. Darkness flickered, shifting once more, revealing a warped landscape just beyond the light. As Jenna shielded her eyes, she realized she was no longer alone. Other figures emerged from the shadows, some familiar, some hauntingly strange. Were they friends? Enemies? Victims? Welcome. Ethan's voice slithered through the air once again, dripping with false sweetness. You're just in time for the party. Panic swallowed Jenna whole. What party? A tense knot twisted in her stomach. What new horror had she stumbled into? And just as questions flooded her mind, a deafening series of whispers rose around her, drowning out all rational thought. Were they pleading for her help? Or begging her to stay? She took a step forward, heart pounding, when the ground shifted ominously beneath her feet. Was this the path she had chosen, or was it the brink of damnation? Jenna's pulse raced as she braced herself for the answers awaiting her in this eerie realm. What awaited her now? And who would she become in this grim tapestry of shadows? Jenna squinted through the blinding light, the edges of her vision filled with shattered silhouettes in agony. They stirred, dark shapes fidgeting restlessly around her, shadows of the damned. A sense of vertigo washed over her as the ground continued to tremble, shaking her equilibrium. Where are we? She whispered, her voice barely slicing through the chorus of desperate cries. The air was thick and suffocating, laced with a cold dread that weighed heavily on her shoulders. Ethan stepped closer, an unsettling grin tightening the skin across his gaunt face. You're with family now, Jenna. He spread his arms wide, embracing the chaos swirling around them. We're all here to welcome you. The figures shifted, revealing faces she recognized but whose expressions twisted from familiar warmth to chilling bitterness. Friends from college, a past boyfriend, ghosts of her life that brought joy now morphed into gnarled reminders of loss. Suddenly, they were no longer separate entities, they coalesced into a single being of anguish, taunting and beckoning. Leave them alone. She screamed. But her voice was drowned in the thunder of their collective sorrow, echoing like a funeral dirge in the hollow of her heart. Ethan's voice slithered closer, seductively sweet, almost coaxing. You can join them, Jenna. Together we can fill this void. There's no need for pain. Embrace it. With trembling hands, she stepped back, desperate to distance herself from that false comfort. As she turned, the shadows lunged, pulling at her clothes, yanking her fingers into icy grips like mournful handshakes. Stop. Jenna yanked her arms back, her pulse quick with panic. Isn't it easier to give up? The swirling energies hissed, confusion seeping like poison into her resolve. You don't deserve this. No. She howled, fury bubbling over the fear. I didn't deserve this. I won't become just another whisper in this abyss. But her defiance felt flimsy, just a wilting petal in a storm. The figures shifted closer, their faces melting into the blankness, part terror, part longing, all accusing. We waited for you, they whispered in unison, voices low and smothering. You turned your back. Visions flooded Jenna's mind, moments of neglect, memories shelved for the sake of her own desires. Her heart raced, twisting with guilt so sharp it paralyzed her. I thought it was necessary to choose myself. Choosing yourself meant losing us, they shot back, and the shadows grew heavier, snaking around her like a vice, squeezing tighter with every word. Ethan grinned wider, taking on a more monstrous visage, teeth glistening in the ambient gloom. Welcome to the club, sis. You can't escape the truth. No one can. Desperation urged Jenna into action. Heart thrumming, lips trembling, she steeled herself. I'm not afraid of the truth. She tore through the crowd of shadows, pushing past them as they grasped for her, forcefully breaking free from their ice-cold fingers. In that chaotic moment, a sliver of light unfolded, a gap that seemed to pulsate with energy, vivid and alive. Jenna dashed toward it, each step fueled by the screams and whispers behind her. The ground shook violently, as if the realm itself was enraged. The silhouettes shrieked horrific, blood-curdling cries that encircled her like a noose. She lunged through the light, arms flailing, a scream of panic slicing through her lips. Would this be the end or a form of rebirth? A bright flash enveloped her, and Jenna held her breath in anticipation. Then, darkness, the light snuffed out around her, plunging her into suffocating silence. Where was she now? The ground felt soft beneath her, but it wasn't solid. Was it dirt? Grass? Jenna's heart drummed chaotically as her eyes adjusted to the new surroundings. Shapes began to materialize once again, floating before her in a misty haze. Welcome back, said a voice. It was low, foreboding, and achingly familiar. A chill ran down her spine as she recognized the sound. Ethereal laughter rang out all around her, and the shadows twisted into figures cloaked in familiarity. You've got more to learn, dear sister, it whispered, pulling her into an unholy embrace. What had she truly walked into? And how could she possibly escape? Jenna stood frozen in shock as the shadows twisted and morphed, their malignant forms beckoning, shadowy arms reaching for her with a hunger that sent chills deep into her bones. You shouldn't have come back, Ethan's voice mocked, smooth yet jagged, like ice scraping against metal. But within that familiar tone, she sensed an ancient darkness, something vile enough to swallow her whole. No. Jenna cried, shaking her head as if the simple gesture could dispel the suffocating terror that wrapped around her. You're not him. You're just a monster. Her heart raced. Escape felt impossible, but something deep in her refused to give in. Suddenly, the shadows flared, the figures coiling tighter, their whispers intertwining into a haunting melody. You can't escape your fate, they hissed, almost song-like, every note resonating within her like a drumbeat of despair. But then, in a moment thick with adrenaline, Jenna felt a surge of determination ignite within her. She focused on the light she had glimpsed moments ago, the warmth that had flashed like hope amid all the dark. I will break free. She shouted, clenching her fists, summoning courage from the fragments of laughter, friendship, and love she remembered so vividly. In a swift motion, she lunged through the crowd of despairing figures, bursting past their tortured visages, barely touching the coldness of their grasp. As she plunged forward, the shadows recoiled, momentarily stunned by the defiance that radiated off her. "I choose light," she screamed, the declaration spilling from her lips like a chant. A radiant glow sparked in the distance, pulsing like a heartbeat, guiding her like a lighthouse through the storm. But as she surged forward, Ethan's monstrous form surged closer. "You can't leave. You belong here with us," he roared, anger twisting his features. The shadows surged forward again, wild with fury, but Jenna pressed on, fighting against the weight of self-doubt that threatened to draw her back. "No!" she shouted, echoing through the darkness with newfound strength. "I refuse to live in your shadows." And just like that, she plowed into the light, arms outstretched as its warmth enveloped her whole, igniting flames of courage that scorched away every vestige of doubt. She felt the rush of energy kaleidoscope through her. It was liberation and fury mixed into a heady concoction. The shadows, blinded by the intensity of her will, receded, shrieking in outrage, their cries surrounding her like a distant storm. With one last push of will, she burst into the blinding light, crossing a threshold that felt like both an ending and a beginning. Light faded into the familiar contours of her living room, a soft couch, the scent of vanilla lingering in the air. Jenna collapsed, gasping for air as reality settled back around her. But something was different. The oppressive gloom had lifted, and she was alone. But was she really free? In that quiet moment, she glanced around, expecting shadows to pounce from the corners, but there was nothing. The silence felt palpable, though in the distance, echoes of laughter and warmth trickled back into her heart, and she allowed herself to breathe. A rush of relief flooded her senses. With trembling hands, Jenna reached for her phone, fingers flying across the screen to message Claire and Annie, wanting to share the weight of her journey and the fear of what could still lurk in the spaces between them. "Let us talk now," she typed, her heart still racing at the memory of the shadowy figures. The demons weren't just gone, they were part of her now, each experience a lesson, a reminder of exactly how dark things had become. As she waited, every heartbeat echoed the remnants of the shadow world, lingering like a fading whisper. But today, she could choose. Would her friends understand? Would they warn her away from the dark corners that still threatened to slip back into her life? Would they embrace the truth they had all skirted around? The door jingled as Claire stumbled in, wide-eyed, panting slightly. "Jenna!" she exclaimed, rushing over. "Are you okay?" Jenna nodded, desperation clawing at her chest. I saw them, Claire. Ethan, I felt him." Claire's face paled. "What did he say?" "He wanted me to join him. To give in. Then we need to fight it together." Claire's voice was steady, but Jenna could see the worry lurking in her eyes. They would never be free of the shadows entirely, but they could share the burden. The light glimmered through the windows, moving in tandem with the soft glow of friendship that started to remind Jenna how to live again. As they embraced, Jenna felt the last of her panic dissolve into determination. They were alive, outside the lingering grasp of shadows, and together they could navigate this strange, beautiful, terrifying world. When Annie arrived breathless and worried, hugs were exchanged, and Jenna felt freshly bound to these two girls who had embraced both light and dark in equal measure. The whispers faded, the shadows less menacing. Instead, they became lessons, markers of how resilient love and connection could be. They shared stories, laughter pouring into the room, dispelling the dark clouds above. "Tomorrow, we can explore the neighborhood," Jenna suggested, a smile breaking free. "Together." "Definitely," Claire grinned, eyes sparkling. And as they planned their next steps, Jenna knew the final pieces of her journey had interlinked into a fragile blueprint of friendship built upon confronting nightmares. Shadows may linger, but she, Claire, and Annie would embrace whatever came next, because together, they could face the darkness, and together, they would draw upon the power of the light. Now, it's your turn. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand how important it is to support the channel through these actions.